here has read a book by Stephen King or seen a movie based on one of his books? I see a lot of hands, so even if you haven't read or seen one of his movies, you've probably heard of one, like The Shining, It, Cujo. So Stephen King has had a monumental impact on pop culture and has inspired numerous writers, me included. But where did he come from? And what makes his books stand out from all the rest, leading him to become one of the most beloved American writers? So first I'll tell you a little bit about his life. Then I'll take you through some of his bestsellers. And finally, I'll explain what makes his books stand out from the rest. So, Stephen Edwin King was born on September 21st, 1947 in Portland, Maine, according to a biography.com article about him. His childhood was pretty normal, except for the fact that his father left his older brother, and his mother when he was very young, so his family traveled a lot around the country before finally settling down back in Maine. He always wanted to be a writer, but he went to UMaine Orono to study to become a teacher because he figured that was a good backup plan. According to the Encyclopedia of World Biographies article on him, he didn't have a lot of luck finding a teaching job after he graduated. And he worked at a laundromat and a couple of other part-time jobs while writing on the side. It was then when he wrote Carrie, his first book, and originally he didn't think it was going to be any good, and he threw it away in the trash. According to Vice's article, Stephen King has spent half a century scaring us, but his legacy is so much more than horror. It would have stayed in the trash had it not been for his wife, Tabitha, who he met at UMaine Orono and married soon after he graduated. She took it out of the trash and convinced him to finish it. When it was published, it started a whole new life for Stephen King. He became a full-time author and has written more than 70 books since then. So one of his books that he's known for is It. I have read this one, so I will give a brief synopsis. The book goes back and forth between past and present, following a group of kids, later adults, in the made-up town of Derry, Maine, as they fight a killer clown that has been killing children in their hometown for the last couple hundreds of years. This book is considered one of his longest, at almost 1,200 pages, and is considered one of his best. There's been a TV series from the 90s and 2 recent movies that have tried to tackle it, and both have been very popular. Another one of his career-defining books is The Shining, most notable for the Kubrick movie that it inspired. This book is about an alcoholic man named Jack who accepts a job as a hotel caretaker for a haunted hotel high in the Colorado Rockies with his wife and his psychic son, and murder and madness ensues when they get snowed in for the winter. Stephen King took from his own experiences with alcoholism to write the character of Jack, which makes it more in-depth and interesting for the reader. But what makes his book stand out? According to that Vice article that I mentioned earlier, all of his books exist in the same universe, and mentions of different books are sprinkled for those who have read many, which King refers to as the constant reader in his introductions and his afterwards. These are people that will read anything that King puts out. So some examples of the existence of the same universe is that multiple towns like Castle Rock and Derry are mentioned throughout the books and short stories. There's a reoccurring villain named Randall Flagg, and the power of the shine is seen in multiple books. So another thing that makes his books stand out is that in his books, the scariest creatures are people, not the supernatural horrors. In The Shining, it's not the ghosts that haunt the hotel that scare as much as the murderous father. In Misery, the crazed nurse has nothing supernatural about her, except for her disregard for human suffering. The scariest part of the Dead Zone is the isolation that Johnny Smith feels after he gains psychic powers. So, in conclusion, I have taken you through Stephen King's biography, some of his bestsellers, and what makes his books stand out. Stephen King grew up dreaming of being a writer, and through a bit of luck and the support of his wife, he has been able to change the face of the literary landscape. Those books that I mentioned have influenced pop culture to an unmeasurable degree. Finally, his books stand out because they reward the so-called constant reader and approach horror from a unique point of view. I hope that you've learned a little bit about the King of Horror, and you'll be tempted to pick up one of his books, or at least you'll have more appreciation for what he has contributed to pop culture.